This winter, more than ever, with COVID-19 still circulating, we need help to reduce all avoidable risks. You can help protect the NHS, social care and loved ones by getting the flu vaccine. You may be eligible for the free vaccine at your GP or local pharmacy if you are over 65, pregnant or have a long-term condition. Find out if you are eligible at nhs.uk/staywell. Children up to Year 7 can get the free nasal spray at school or through their GP if they are below school age. If you are not eligible for the free vaccine, you can pay for it at your local pharmacy. The flu vaccination does not give you flu. It reduces the risk of catching flu as well as spreading it to others. If you had the vaccination in the past, that will not protect you as the flu strain changes every year, so you need to have a new one this year. It is also important to wash your hands often with warm water and soap. Use tissues when you cough or sneeze and bin used tissues as quickly as possible. Thank you for helping to protect yourself and loved ones this winter.
COVID-19 is in our communities and the number of cases is on the rise. So it's essential that we each play our part in full by following all of the government guidance. Only by doing this can we keep our schools and businesses open. If you're young and healthy, you may feel the virus isn't a threat to you. But someone more vulnerable to coronavirus than you, perhaps someone closer to you than you realise, is depending on you to play your part in breaking the chain of transmission. So I'm asking everyone to do their bit. Stick to the rule of 6 for gatherings indoors or outdoors. Wash your hands thoroughly and regularly. Wear a face covering in enclosed spaces. Observe social distancing of 2 metres or 1 metre plus precautions where 2 metres really isn't possible. Follow all of the guidelines about car sharing. If you have symptoms, self-isolate and get a free test immediately. If we work together on this, we can control the spread of the virus. Thank you.
My name's Jonathan Gribbin. I'm the Director of Public Health for Nottinghamshire County, and I'd like to tell you about the COVID-19 Local Outbreak Control Plan for Nottinghamshire. It's all about containing the virus so that we can protect one another, safeguard our critical services, and enable our schools, our workplaces, our communities to flourish again. And the plan describes how we will do that in Nottinghamshire. It complements the national test and trace arrangements, and it builds on local arrangements with key partners like Public Health England, the district and borough councils, the city council and our local NHS. It identifies a range of settings such as schools, workplaces, universities, care homes and so on, which require specific plans to deal with any fresh outbreaks of the virus. It describes how we'll be monitoring on a daily basis to spot if there are any new outbreaks, and then coordinating action to investigate and deal with them, deploying extra testing capacity if we need to, or contact tracing as appropriate. The plan also deals with how we will continue to provide support.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay, welcome to the review session of the Nottinghamshire Minerals Local Plan. And the purpose of this session is just to go back over the changes that were discussed during the hearing sessions. The purpose is to enable the Council to progress its schedule of modifications. And it's not an opportunity to reopen discussions on any matter, but there may be a necessity for some sort of fine-tuning of any discussions that have previously taken place. Any comments that I make today do not indicate my final conclusions on any aspects of soundness, but are just intended to provide guidance. The Council has asked me to recommend main modifications in accordance with Section 112 of the Localism Act. I've received, thank you very much, I've received the suggested changes to policy DM4. And I've been copied into an email which Mr. Coles sent, which it provides a summary of the comments made by Professor Haynes Young regarding the site allocation development brief for Mill Hill. Are there any comments before we start today? Mr. Keane.
So, thank you. I just want to check with Mr. Osborne James through you, if I may, sir, that I've been told about the email from Barton and Favours Parish Council, which, as I understand it, is a list of the things that, as discussed yesterday, they would like to see included in the development brief. I paraphrase, but yes. So I haven't actually set eyes on it. But as long as Mr. Osborne James is happy that that's what you've got as well, then I think the position that the council would take is to say thank you very much to Barton and Favours Parish Council and the group. And as Mr. Osborne James said yesterday, we're happy to take that away and look at it in the context of suggested revisions to the development brief, albeit that, as I think the discussion made clear, that some of that may make its way in, but not necessarily all. So because, as for the reasons that were explained yesterday, some of it may be matters that the council decides should wait for application stage, but it's a useful and helpful list as I understand it. So thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I'd just like to add to that I can confirm we have had that email. I haven't had a chance to respond to that and confirm to the parish council that I've received it, but we will do in due course, and we will take that into account. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, are there any other comments before we start today? No. Well, shall we? I suggest that we just go through the parts of the plan and the policies in the order in which they were discussed. But I mean, I've made my list of points which I've noted, but there may be other points that the council has got. So please feel free to add anything as we go through. Mr. Keane.
So yes, I suspect a similar exercise last night. I've got a list too. So hopefully, which we discussed internally, as it were. So hopefully, between your list and our list, we should cover the territory, I hope.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
I've got okay. Well, the first point I've got is paragraph 3.5.
Yes, sir.
And that was to sort of bring that paragraph into line with the framework.
Para 11D. So yes, just to exactly to amend to be in accordance with the current version of the paragraph.
Yes. Yeah. And then I've got policy SP4.
So I've got. Sorry.
Yes.
Is it convenient? So as we're going through in plan order, if there are things that I've got in between
Yes.
Your
Yes.
list. Can
Yes,
I
yes,
intervene
please.
rather than go backwards?
Please.
So the next one is SP2. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I think I might have misreferenced. Yes, I'm sorry, sir. It is SP4. I had the wrong SP4. I apologise. I butted it.
And of course, any changes may have consequential changes elsewhere as well. So we have to bear that in mind.
Yes. Yeah. I apologise, sir. SP4.
SP4. I made a note that I think a comment was made. I think paragraph 3.43 makes reference to the viability of sustainable transport, and representation was made that that should be included within policy SP4, and it was suggested that the first paragraph of that policy could add the words "where practical and economic," and I think that the council indicated that was something that you could consider.
Yes, sir.
Is that have you reached a conclusion?
So yes, I think the council is happy to make that amendment in the wording as you've just read.
Okay. And then I've got.
So there was one other on SP4.
Yes.
Which is SP42, and the reference to new mineral working in the second line of SP42.
Oh yes.
And whether or not either the policy or the text, the council agreed to consider whether the policy or the text should make clear that new includes extensions.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And again, I think that's uncontroversial, so happy to do that. But what hasn't happened yet, as with almost all of these, is a redraft of exactly how that would be worded. But it's an issue the council is happy to accommodate.
Yes. Okay, and I've got a note in relation to paragraph 3.63, which follows policy SP5.
Yes.
And it's a paragraph headed infrastructure. A couple of comments were made. I think they were suggestions, really. I think one comment was made. It queried whether reference should be made to the mining code.
Yes. I think I said yes. I think, and there was also reference to whether or not there was. I think it was what the parish council were very keen for the word flood banks to flood banks to be referred to in the paragraph.
Yes.
My recollection of this is that Mr. Ratcliffe, I think from McGeorge, I think because he came back to the matter in the context of the Environment Agency's responsibilities amongst other matters, didn't he? So I must admit I wasn't sure whether the point had rather fallen away, but I don't think the council has taken that any further in terms of thinking about a revision to the text, but we're happy to look at it, sir, if you thought that would be useful.
Yes, is this the point about the mining code, or is that the point about the flood bank?
I think the flood bank point was the point that I was referring to, and I'll defer to others, sir, as to the reference to whether reference to the mining code should be included into the paragraph. It's not a matter that we had on our list as a result of the conversation, but I'm happy for someone else to either to say something now, or we can take it away, sir, and think about it.
So it may clarify the situation if we did perhaps make reference to it. but again, I think we would need to just double check the content of the mining code to make sure that we didn't reference it and then it was kind of sat out of context. So
yes,
yeah,
okay.
if it helps, we shall certainly look at it to clarify the position, and we'll.
Yes, okay.
That's
yes.
okay.
Yes.
So before we move on from there, can I go back one stage to 354, please?
Yes.
And so this, I'm not sure that this was actually a matter that was considered in the session. Now, I can't actually recall, but you'll know that when we get further into the plan in relation to the heritage policies, the council has suggested that there needs to be revisions to the text in relation to how harm is assessed in relation to substantial or less than substantial. We're coming to that in due course. But it seemed to us, looking at this last night, that 354 also needs a bit of revision, just to be consistent with what has been suggested for later on in relation to that. And I although I don't have, I mean, I think the point there, sir, at 354 would be to effectively refer to Framework 197 in terms of in weighing applications with harmful impacts to other heritage assets, including non-designated assets. The balancing has to have regard to the scale of the harm and the significance of the asset, etc. So it's just a little bit of it's not a substantive difference, but I think that to make it consistent with the revisions that are coming, that would also be a paragraph that should be adjusted.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now, policy SP7.
Yes.
And I think also strategic objective 4. They refer to economically important mineral resources. And there was some discussion about this. Economically important is justified. Yes, I mean that's my sort of outstanding question. Really, is what's the justification for the term economically important, or should alternative wording be used, or is there any sort of alternative way of describing what the policy and the strategic objective seek to achieve?
So we just sort of thinking then whether we could remove the economically bit from that policy, so we just refer to them as important mineral resources, if that would help, because I think as we set out in the hearing session, the resource areas have been kind of narrowed down in consultation with the industry in terms of things like bricklay. So I think it's still important to make reference to the fact that, you know, it's the important areas that have been identified, rather than just, if we lost that, I think we might end up having to kind of identify the entire resource area in the county. So I think that might just help differentiate between all of it and you know, the sort of the sections that we think are important in the county. So if that helps, I think that might clarify things quite easily.
Yes. Okay,
thank you.
So, and that would apply equally to SO4 then, Mr. Osborne James, just looking to confirm for consistency.
Yes.
Okay, and so just for the sake of my two penny worth, I think it also has the advantage of it resolves potential ambiguity. As I think one of the industry spokespeople said on the day, that, you know, you risk getting into debate about what economically means, and it's perhaps more ambiguous than it needs to be. So council's happy to adjust it in that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Then now I did flag up a point about the safeguarding of the associated facilities. Now, I having sort of reread the PPG, the responsibility does lie with district councils as well as the Minerals Planning Authority. But I understand there are some facilities that are associated with quarries, so they would be on or adjacent to quarry sites. Is that?
Sorry, sir, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, there's the two elements really. There's those quarries that have got infrastructure on site, such as batching plants and that sort of thing, that are tied to the application. So effectively, once that quarry ceased, then they would be removed. We felt that they get safeguarded as part of the overall quarry application. So we're happy if it makes it clear for you that we could identify the quarries that have got those infrastructure, batching plants, etc. on there. But yes, it was more kind of the concrete batching plants that we felt would be covered by the districts. However, as we mentioned in the hearing session, we have got a list of those in the county, and they could be included in the monitoring report or a similar document if that helped to clarify the position, and then that sort of doesn't include them in the plan because it'd only be a snapshot in time, and if they were in, say, the annual monitoring report, then they could be updated annually, if that
yes, okay. So would you identify the facilities that are associated with quarries then? Would they be identified on the policies map? Or listed?
We could, I suppose, quite happy to do it. I suppose my only thought would be, again, that they would only be a snapshot in time, and whether they would be better placed again in the monitoring report or similar. But I'm open to anybody else's view on this, or if you have a preference. That's just my thoughts. I don't know if my colleague has any thoughts.
I mean, the policy SP7 Part 1 states that associated minerals infrastructure will be safeguarded.